Chapter 1. Caleb, I've decided to go abroad with you for the advanced program. On the other end of the line, Caleb Carter couldn't suppress his excitement when he heard Lena Ainsworth's final decision. Calming himself slightly, he still asked with a hint of hesitation. Lena, are you really sure about this? We could be there for 3 to 5 years, maybe even longer. You have a family. Will your husband be okay with it? Lena froze for a moment, a bitter smile twisting her lips. Ethan Blackwood. If he knew she was about to go abroad and finally draw a clear line between them, he'd probably be overjoyed. Suppressing the bitterness in her heart, Lena said, "It's fine, Caleb. This is my decision. It has nothing to do with him." Her tone was icy, as if the him she spoke of was a complete stranger. It hadn't always been like this between them. Lena hung up the phone and stared blankly at the wedding photo hanging on the bedroom wall. In it, Ethan's arm was wrapped around her waist, a rare hint of a smile on his cool, handsome face. On their wedding day, he had told her, "Marriage is for a lifetime, ye. Let's make it a good one." Lena and Ethan had grown up together. From a very young age, she had adored the cool, reserved older boy next door, and she had tried everything she could think of to win him over. But Ethan had remained unmoved. Just as Lena was about to give up, he had suddenly proposed marriage. Lena had wept with joy, thinking her persistence had finally paid off. After they married, he was good to her. The iciness was gone, replaced by a kind of doting indulgence. She remembered seeing a priceless diamond necklace once. Her family forbade her from buying it, but when Ethan found out, he said nothing. A few days later, the necklace was sitting on her bedside table. "My wife," he had said, "can have anything she wants." That night, she was so moved she cried, kissing him fiercely. He didn't push her away, instead, he deepened the kiss. Lena had believed they would be happy like that forever. Until 3 months ago, when Ethan's first love, Chloe Vance, suddenly returned to the country, bringing with her a copy of her divorce decree. Only then did Lena understand why Ethan had suddenly proposed to her. It wasn't because he was finally moved by her devotion. It was because the woman he truly loved had gotten married. Tears streamed down Lena's face at the thought, a sharp pain constricting her chest. She didn't even notice the bedroom door swing open. Through her blurry vision, Lena froze, then saw the man frowning with extreme impatience. "What are you crying about now?" "I already told you, Chloe just got divorced. She's in a fragile state and needs someone with her. Can you stop being so unreasonable about this?" Ethan rubbed his temples wearily, showing no intention of comforting her. He turned, tossed a few items of clothing into a suitcase, zipped it up, and walked out without another word, not telling her where he was going or when he'd be back. But she didn't need to ask. Ever since Chloe had returned and been diagnosed with mild depression, Ethan had been by her side almost constantly. He had probably only come back this time to grab some fresh clothes. For the first time, Lena didn't run after him, grab his waist, and cry, begging him not to go, telling him she didn't want her husband spending time with another woman. She just stood there, watching him walk further and further away. She knew in that moment that their marriage had finally reached its end. Chapter 2. The next day, Lena arrived early at the dance company. She had studied dance since she was a child and was quite talented, originally planning to pursue it professionally. But Ethan had told her he didn't like women who danced, and he especially didn't like her dancing. Although Lena found it strange, she loved him so deeply that she was willing to put him at the center of her world. Without a second thought, she left the company, gradually shifting to only doing assistant teaching work. But on her first day back on stage, she looked out past the crowd and her eyes immediately locked onto Ethan, sitting in the front row, center seat. For a moment, her mind went blank. Then, in a daze, Lena remembered that Chloe was a dancer, too. Lena glanced to her side and saw Chloe Vance standing right next to her pale, but with exquisite makeup. So this was the famous dance instructor the teacher had mentioned, today's lead dancer. Chloe acted as if she didn't see Lena at all, her eyes fixed solely on Ethan in the audience, filled with a tender longing. Ethan's gaze was locked on her just as intensely, his eyes full of admiration and love. A suffocating feeling tightened in Lena's chest. So it wasn't that he disliked dancers, he just only liked Chloe when she danced. That beautiful memory was something even his own wife couldn't touch. As Lena thought this, tears began to fall again. She watched the two of them exchange intimate glances across the distance and silently told herself this was the last time. The very last time she would ever cry for Ethan Blackwood. Never again. Composing herself, Lena walked onto the stage with Chloe, but no one could have predicted what happened next. Halfway through the performance, a large beam above the stage suddenly came loose, swaying precariously before it started to fall. Ethan's eyes narrowed. He shot up from his seat and rushed the stage. Without a second of hesitation, he shoved Lena aside and threw his arms around Chloe. Lena felt a sharp, violent pain as she was thrown to the ground. As stars exploded behind her eyes, she saw her husband sweep Chloe into his arms. The look of panic on his face was one she had never seen before. "Chloe, are you all right?" "I'm fine," Chloe whimpered, nestled in Ethan's arms, clutching his collar pitifully. "Ethan, that was terrifying. It's okay, I'm here." Listening to them, Lena suddenly remembered their wedding vows. Ethan had said he would always be by her side, then paused for a fraction of a second before slowly saying her name. She hadn't understood the meaning of that pause then, but now she realized that the promise, "I'll always be here for you," was probably never meant for her in the first place. Tears threatened to fall again, but this time she forced them back. If it wasn't hers to begin with, she didn't want it. What was there to cry about? "Ethan, is your wife okay?" The people around them were all looking over, seemingly surprised to learn that Lena was Ethan's wife. But Ethan still didn't come over. He held Chloe tightly and said, "I'll have the driver take you home." "No need," Lena said, forcing herself to her feet. Luckily, the beam hadn't hit her. She had only twisted her ankle when he pushed her, but now it throbbed with a piercing pain. But she didn't cry or act spoiled to get Ethan's attention like she used to. She simply stood up and slowly made her way out. "I can walk on my own. You don't have to send me." As she limped off the center of the stage, her senior, Caleb Carter, looked at her with a complicated expression. Lena managed a weak smile and asked only one thing. "Caleb, when can we leave?" She couldn't wait another second. She had to get out of there, away from this place, away from Ethan. To Lena's surprise, Ethan actually came home that night. He saw her applying a medicated patch to her ankle and frowned. "Is it really that bad?" Chapter 3. Lena froze. She understood immediately that he thought she was faking it, putting on a delicate act to win his sympathy, just like she used to. Back then, Ethan would have played along, crouching down to ask where it hurt, maybe even giving her an affectionate kiss. But now, all that was left in his eyes was annoyance. Lena didn't explain. She simply finished applying the patch and said flatly, "It's nothing." She turned to go upstairs, but Ethan grabbed her wrist, his grip so tight it felt like he was suppressing a rage. "Chloe said you and Caleb set up the stage together, so?" Lena understood at once. He was accusing her of trying to hurt Chloe. A fresh wave of hurt washed over her. They had been married for 3 years, and yet his trust in her was nothing compared to a single word from his first love. She fought back the bitter sting in her throat and said, enunciating each word carefully, "I would never do something like that. Not in the past and not in the future." "Then what were you and Caleb whispering about backstage?" Ethan pressed, his handsome face contorted with anger. Lena paused. She had been asking Caleb about going abroad, but her visa hadn't come through yet, and she didn't want to give Ethan the satisfaction of knowing she was leaving. So she told a small lie. "We were discussing the choreography for the next dance. Do you want to hear about it?" As expected, Ethan didn't press the issue. He had never shown much interest in her affairs. He left her with a final warning. "Keep your mind off Chloe, and there's a family dinner tomorrow. Be there early." Lena watched him stride out of the villa without a backward glance. A few moments later, a friend request from an unknown number popped up on her phone. She accepted it, and a photo immediately came through. It showed a pair of long, pale fingers gently covering a slender ankle, the touch careful and delicate. On the ring finger of that hand was a deep indentation where a ring used to be. It was the mark left by Ethan's wedding ring, which he had now taken off. A message followed. "I said it didn't hurt, but Ethan insisted on massaging it for me." The taunt was unmistakable. Lena, however, couldn't be bothered to care. She replied with a simple, how sweet." Then she tossed her phone aside and started checking how long it would take for her visa to be processed. Early the next morning, she arrived at the Blackwood family villa, intending to greet her in-laws and then leave. Since she was leaving soon, she felt she should say a proper goodbye. But unexpectedly, Ethan was also there early. He looked as impeccably polished as ever, except for the faint kiss mark on his neck that he couldn't quite hide. It hadn't been there last night. It must have been from Chloe. His parents, unaware of the situation, saw it and teased the young couple, asking when they were going to give them a grandchild. Ethan paused for a beat before answering without the slightest hesitation. Lena and I aren't planning on having kids yet. The truth was, they had planned to have a child this year. Ethan had even said he wanted a little girl as cute as Lena. But the moment Chloe returned, all those plans were erased. Noticing Lena staring at the floor, refusing to look at him, Ethan suddenly announced, "Dad, Mom, I've brought a friend to meet you today." Lena's head snapped up. She couldn't believe Ethan would be so bold as to bring Chloe directly to his family home. Chapter 4. Ethan and Chloe had dated when they were young, and their relationship had been very private. His parents, Frederick and Alina, didn't know about their past. They simply saw Chloe as a friend of their son's who was suffering from depression and had nowhere to go. So they treated her warmly, even seating her next to Ethan. Lena watched as Ethan served Chloe food, his gentle and attentive care on full display. Suddenly, the meal felt like chewing on wax. It was unbearably tasteless. She made a quick excuse and slipped out into the back garden. Sunlight streamed down into the garden, which was bursting with flowers. In the middle of it all, one small tree looked slightly out of place. Lena leaned in for a closer look. Suddenly, a cold voice came from behind her. "Chloe and I planted that together in high school." Lena froze and turned to see Ethan, his expression as frosty as his voice. She just said, "Oh," genuinely uninterested in the history between her husband and another woman. She turned to leave, but Ethan grabbed her arm again. His eyes swirled with an emotion she couldn't decipher. "When I was in high school, my parents were going through a messy divorce, and I developed some serious psychological issues. All the people who claimed to like me scattered. Only Chloe stuck by me, so..." He didn't finish, but Lena could guess the rest. That was why he had never been able to forget her. Lena suddenly felt pathetic. She had written Ethan so many letters in high school, too. He had been a recluse back then, with a difficult personality, so she hadn't dared to approach him directly. Instead, she had secretly slipped the letters into his desk, but her letters were different from Chloe's presence. Chloe could reach Ethan's heart, but she couldn't. Lena forced a bitter smile. "So that's why you love her so much." Ethan didn't answer the question, nor did he deny it. Instead, he looked up and asked her, "What about you? Why do you like me?" Lena was taken aback. There were so many reasons she liked Ethan. Because he was handsome, because he always protected her when they played games as kids. There were too many to count. But before she could finish, Chloe came running over from a distance and threw herself into Ethan's arms. "Ethan, my head is starting to hurt again. Let's go home." Without hesitation, Ethan swept Chloe up into his arms and hurried away. Lena watched his anxious back and laughed at herself. It didn't matter what the reasons were anymore. She was leaving soon, and Ethan would finally get to be with the girl he loved. That was enough. Just then, her phone rang. It was Caleb, telling her the visa was all settled. She could leave for her destination in just a few days. Lena thanked him sincerely, and then Caleb asked, "The last performance was an accident. The company has a big production coming up, a solo dance called Jints. Would you be interested?" Jints. The name resonated with Lena. It was the first piece she had ever performed publicly. It was also the only performance Ethan had ever made a special trip to see. After that show, he had walked up to her with a bouquet of flowers and proposed in front of thousands of people. That had been the beginning of their story. A few years had passed in a blur, and now their marriage was about to end. She felt she owed their relationship a dignified, proper conclusion. With that in mind, Lena accepted Caleb's offer. After hanging up, she sent Ethan a message. "Are you coming home tonight? There's something I need to talk to you about." When she got home that evening, Ethan was already in the bedroom. He noticed the few packed suitcases by the door and frowned slightly. "Where are you going?" Chapter 5. A jolt of panic shot through Lena, but she quickly composed herself. "Oh, I have a performance in a few days. I have to go to the dance company for some intensive training." Ethan nodded, assuming that was all she wanted to talk about. He started to leave, but Lena called out from behind him, "Ethan, the dance I'm performing is Jints. Can you come and watch my performance?" Years ago, Lena had asked him the very same thing. They had been deeply in love then, so even though Ethan disliked her dancing in public, he had nodded gently. Of course, it's Yi's first performance. I'll definitely be there. But now, things were different. Ethan thought for a moment, then turned back. Seeing the longing in Lena's eyes, he finally nodded. I'll be there if nothing comes up. With that, he left without another word. That night, Lena received another flood of suggestive photos from Chloe. She looked at them and just smiled numbly, her heart no longer capable of feeling a thing. This marriage was already in ruins. All she could do was give it a decent ending. That was all. Lena packed the rest of her belongings and moved into the dance company's dormitory that night, throwing herself into her training. For the better part of a month, Lena controlled her diet and trained relentlessly, wearing out 2 pairs of dance shoes. On the day of the performance, she woke up early to do her makeup, reviewed her choreography one last time, and finally gathered the courage to send Ethan a message. You're coming today, right? It took a long time for him to reply, with just a single word. Yes. A genuine smile spread across Lena's face. She looked at the stack of diaries and a single card beside her. They contained the records of her decade-plus love for Ethan. After this dance, she would give them all to him, and then she would leave. Just like the last time she had danced this piece, and he had given her the marriage she'd always dreamed of. This time, she would return her years of love to him so he could truly be with the person he loved. On the card, Lena wrote, "Thank you for everything. I wish you all the best in the future." Tucked alongside it was a signed divorce agreement. With everything prepared, Lena went to her position backstage, waiting for her cue. But unexpectedly, a staff member came over and told her, "I'm sorry, Miss Ainsworth, but you won't be performing this piece." Lena was stunned. How was that possible? She had been training, rehearsing, how could they suddenly replace her? Caleb rushed over, his brow furrowed. It was the investor's request. A cold dread washed over Lena as a terrible premonition took hold. Who's replacing me? Caleb pointed to a woman not far away, already in costume, who turned and shot Lena a triumphant smirk. Who else could it be but Chloe? Caleb leaned in and whispered in Lena's ear, "There's nothing we can do." The sponsor for this event is the Blackwood Corporation. It was Ethan who specifically requested Chloe to perform. Ethan, it was him again, so when he said he was coming, it wasn't to see her dance. It was to see Chloe. Lena's lips twisted into a wry smile, but her heart felt strangely calm. She should have known, shouldn't she? He didn't like her dancing, so why would he ever come to watch her? The only one he ever cared about was Chloe. The stage crew began clearing the set. Caleb wanted to comfort her, but Lena's expression was placid. She asked in a very soft voice, "Caleb, can I leave tonight?" Chapter 6. With all the paperwork already completed, Lena quickly booked a flight to Paris, France for that night. Caleb arranged a car for her and told her he would follow soon. Looking at the stage where the performance had just begun, he let out a deep sigh and asked, "Yi, is there anything else you need me to take care of?" Lena thought for a moment. She had always been independent, and her parents never meddled in her affairs. There didn't seem to be anything left to arrange. Except for one thing. Lena handed a large box from the table to Caleb and said softly, "Caleb, please have this delivered to the Blackwood estate for me. The things inside are for Ethan." A strange glint flashed in Caleb's eyes, but he simply nodded and closed the car door. On the way to the airport, Lena received several calls from Ethan. She ignored them all, but he kept calling relentlessly until she finally had to answer. "Chloe really liked that dance, so I gave it to her." Lena just gave a quiet saying nothing more. Ethan hadn't expected her to be so calm. He continued, his words tumbling out, "She's not well, so you should let her have it. The next time there's a chance for a solo, if she doesn't want it, I'll let you have it. But not this one." With that, he hung up abruptly. Lena curled her lip into a faint smile. He didn't even want her anymore. Did he really think she would care about a stupid dance? She idly scrolled through her phone when a trending news headline popped up. Divorced tycoon proposes to dance goddess, seals it with a fateful dance. Lena froze and clicked on it. The video showed Ethan, dressed in understated clothes that couldn't hide his noble aura, in the center of the stage. He was down on one knee, holding up a ring to Chloe, who was clutching a bouquet of flowers. In the video, Lena could clearly hear Ethan's 3 words, "Marry me?" The comments section had already exploded with thousands of messages. "I heard Jinx was the first dance Mr. Blackwood ever saw Chloe perform. He must have fallen for her back then. A second chance at first love, getting back together after all this time. This is the best, I love it. I knew his marriage to that Lena Ainsworth was just a business arrangement with no feelings involved. It's always been our Chloe he loved." Lena read through the comments one by one, and she suddenly understood why Ethan had chosen to propose to her after she performed that particular dance all those years ago. It wasn't because her dancing was beautiful, nor was it to make her happy. It was simply because Chloe had danced it before. He was reliving their past. So, this marriage, from beginning to end, had never contained a single moment that truly belonged to her. That's fine, Lena thought. If there was no real beginning, then it didn't need an ending. It was time for her to start a new journey. Just then, Chloe posted on her social media account, showing off a brand new diamond ring with the caption, "5 years late, but I'm glad it's you." Lena clicked on the post and left a comment, "Wishing you all the best." Just as she finished typing, the car pulled up to the airport. She decisively turned off her phone, popped out the SIM card, and tossed it into a trash can before turning and walking toward the departure gate. For the rest of their lives, they would have no connection. Chapter 7. Back at the performance hall, Ethan watched call after call come in on his phone. They were all asking about him and Chloe. But out of the hundreds of calls, not a single one was from Lena. A dark premonition began to rise in his heart. The girl's soft but utterly indifferent voice from the phone call echoed in his ears. It's fine, as long as Miss Vance is happy." She never used to speak to him like that. She would argue, she would throw tantrums, she would even smash things in a rage, but she would never be this calm while watching another woman take what was hers. The unease in his heart grew stronger and stronger, so much so that when Chloe approached him, he abruptly stood up, putting distance between them. I have to go home." Chloe tried to grab his arm, but she was too late. On the way, Ethan drove recklessly fast, unaware of the desperation in his own eyes. His mind was racing. Why hasn't she called me even once? She wasn't like this before. If he was even a little late coming home, she would have called him 1,000 times. When did it start? When did she stop asking where he was? When did she stop caring about his whereabouts? Ethan's thoughts were a tangled mess. When the car screeched to a halt, he bolted into the villa. He found it completely empty. Lena's shoes were gone from the entrance. Her coat was missing from the rack. There was nothing. Where did she go? Why wasn't she back yet? The unease in Ethan's heart intensified. He grabbed the housekeeper and demanded, his voice frantic, "Is my wife back yet?" "No." The housekeeper shook her head and placed a file in front of him. "But sir, Mrs. Blackwood sent this back." With trembling hands, Ethan opened the envelope. He stared at its contents, and in that instant, his world shattered. A divorce agreement. So, she really wanted to divorce him. Ethan's fingers trembled even more violently. A terrifying realization crashed down on him. He might never see Lena Ainsworth again. She had left a divorce agreement. She was no longer his wife. There was nothing between them anymore. Chapter 8. Not long after Lena arrived in Paris, Caleb Carter showed up. At the art school, Lena looked at her travel-worn senior and felt a surge of gratitude. She and Caleb had been classmates since their first dance class as children. They studied together, and he became her senior. Through all the ups and downs of her emotional life over the years, their friendship had remained constant. Lena's feelings were genuine as she said with a sigh, "Caleb, thank you. When we get settled, I'll treat you to dinner. Without a friend like you, I really don't know what I would have done." Hearing the word friend, Caleb's smile faltered for a second, but he quickly recovered. "It's nothing. Once you're officially enrolled, it will be the start of a new chapter in your career." Lena nodded and turned to organize her registration documents. Caleb watched her slender, delicate back and couldn't help but wonder what her expression would be if she ever found out that he was the one who had intentionally leaked the details of their bet to Ethan. Anger? Sadness? Or indifference? Caleb shook his head, pushing aside the last shred of guilt. Undermining someone from behind wasn't exactly honorable. But if he had to choose between being honorable and having Lena, he would choose her every time. Ethan stared blankly at the divorce agreement, unable to process it for a long time. It wasn't until Chloe ran in, trying to throw herself into his arms, that he snapped out of it. "Ethan, what's wrong?" The man shot to his feet, forcefully pushing Chloe away. "What are you doing here?" he said coldly. His expression was glacial, as if he weren't the same man who had passionately proposed to her just a short while ago. Chloe forced a smile. "We're getting married, aren't we?" Before she could finish, Ethan cut her off sharply. "Chloe, you know the deal. I'm only letting you stay here temporarily. There will never be anything else between us." Chloe looked at his cold demeanor, and a wave of despair washed over her. Why, they were supposed to be the ones together. But ever since she came back, Ethan had only used her as a tool to provoke Lena, barely even sparing her a second glance. Tears welled up in her eyes. She rushed forward and wrapped her arms around Ethan's lean waist, her voice choked with sobs. "Ethan, you don't love me anymore, do you? You've fallen in love with Lena Ainsworth, haven't you?" Ethan froze. Did he love Lena? He didn't know. All he knew was that the past few years of their marriage had been genuinely pleasant. Lena was gentle and loved to be affectionate. When she was by his side, her eyes curving into crescents as she said, "Husband, I love you," Ethan felt like his life was filled with sunshine. That was why, when he received that anonymous video and learned about Lena's bet with Caleb, he had been consumed by rage. Caleb had even told him the bet started when they were kids, which meant that Lena's years of affection for him were all just a game, a wager. Just thinking about it made Ethan's chest ache, his breathing ragged with anger. He slammed his fist against the wall and snarled, "No, I don't love her." A flicker of joy appeared in Chloe's eyes, but it was quickly extinguished by his next words. "But I have no interest in you either. Find a place of your own and stop coming to me. The doctor said your depression is fine." Ethan didn't care much for their childhood affections anymore. Right now, he was seething, his mind consumed by thoughts of Lena and her damned bet, and now, she had the audacity to leave him. He violently swept a glass off the table. "Find her, I want you to find her. Find out where she went." Chapter 9. Lena stared in surprise as Caleb Carter unlocked the door to the apartment across the hall. "Caleb, you live here too." Lena was on a tight budget, so she had chosen a very cheap apartment in a less than ideal location. Caleb, on the other hand, came from a wealthy family and had always valued his quality of life. Lena never would have imagined he would end up as her neighbor. Caleb smiled. "Living closer makes it easier for us to look out for each other." Lena laughed. "Great when you find yourself a French girlfriend, bring her over and I'll cook for you both." Caleb's expression darkened instantly. "Lena, are you still in love with Ethan?" Lena's smile froze. "No," she said, forcing her lips into a line. "In 30 days, the waiting period will be over, and we'll have no relationship at all." There was no point in clinging to feelings that were never truly hers to begin with. "Mr. Blackwood, we've found a record of Mrs. Blackwood's flight to Paris." Paris, she had mentioned wanting to study in Paris. Was she alone? She was with her senior, Caleb Carter. In an instant, Ethan crushed the cigarette in his hand, a terrifying aura radiating from him. "Book me a flight. I want the fastest one to Paris." On the way to the airport, Ethan got a call from Chloe. She was crying on the other end. "Ethan, I miss you so much. I had another nightmare. Can you please come see me?" "I'm busy," Ethan said, his voice clipped with impatience. He was about to hang up when a thought struck him. "Chloe, did you see Lena that night? The night of your performance. Did she leave anything behind?" Ethan felt something was off. Lena was always someone who cherished sentimentality. She was the type to take a picture and write a caption for a pretty cup of coffee. How could she have left without a single word about something as monumental as a divorce? Did she hate him that much? As he thought this, Ethan's grip on his phone tightened. Chloe paused for a moment before answering, "No, I didn't see anything." Ethan grunted, the frustration in his voice palpable. On the other end of the line, Chloe looked at the stack of journals on her desk and slowly curved her lips into a smile. It was late at night when Ethan arrived in Paris. He didn't hesitate, heading straight for the address his assistant had given him. The assistant was so tired he could barely keep his eyes open, but seeing his boss's murderous expression, he knew this was not the time to slack off. Mrs. Blackwood was missing, and his boss was probably frantic, so he floored it, speeding to the location Chloe had been seen. After parking the car, Ethan surveyed the dilapidated surroundings and frowned. She was living in a place like this. It didn't make sense. He had given her a black card with no spending limit. Why wasn't she using it? Fuming, Ethan strode into the small apartment building and knocked on the door for a long time. There was no answer. Then the door next to it opened, and an elderly white woman poked her head out. "Lena's not here," she said in English. "She went out on a date with her boyfriend." Ethan's narrow eyes narrowed further. "Boyfriend?" Chapter 10. "Yes, the young man who lives here," the old woman said, pointing to the other door. "They're a funny couple, renting 2 apartments. That boy is such a gentleman." Ethan didn't have to think twice. The person living next door had to be Caleb Carter running off with his wife, and a gentleman. The veins on Ethan's forehead bulged, his handsome face turning even colder. "Where did they go?" The old woman shook her head. "I don't know. They'll probably be back very late. Dating takes up a lot of time." Every mention of a date was like a knife twisting in Ethan's heart. His expression grew darker, and he spun on his heel, storming down the stairs. His secretary was left behind to apologize in English. "I'm so sorry, thank you. He's not normally like this. His wife is missing, he's just worried." As Lena and Caleb walked home after their performance, she was still bothered by his comment about them going on a date. Her pretty face flushed with a hint of anger. "Caleb, why did you tell our neighbor we were on a date?" "You know we're not." Seeing her so eager to distance herself, Caleb's heart sank further, but he kept his expression gentle and composed. "I just said it casually. Does it bother you that much?" Lena nodded fiercely. She wanted nothing to do with romance right now, especially not some ambiguous situation with a good friend. "All right, I won't say it again," Caleb said with a smile. He reached out to pat her hair, but Lena flinched away. Lena didn't know why, but ever since coming to France, she felt that Caleb wasn't as friendly as he used to be. She couldn't put her finger on it, but something was just off. She put some distance between them and waved. "Caleb, I think I'll walk around a bit by myself. You go on ahead." With that, she turned and walked quickly in the opposite direction from her apartment, as if afraid Caleb would follow. Before long, she had shaken him off. It was quiet, as businesses in Europe closed early. As Lena walked along the deserted street, she suddenly heard a familiar deep voice. "I don't care, just find her for me." "Where am I supposed to look, sir? We don't know anyone here." That voice, it sounded a bit like Ethan. As the thought crossed her mind, she quickly dismissed it. She was thousands of miles away from him. How could it be? He was probably with Chloe right now, perfectly happy. Lena lowered her gaze, completely unaware of the figure silently trailing her. Suddenly, the figure lunged, snatched her handbag, and started to run. Lena screamed and tried to give chase, but the mugger grabbed her by the neck. She struggled uselessly and was about to cry for help when the man in front of her was suddenly knocked to the ground by a single punch. In the next instant, Lena was pulled into a familiar embrace. The faint scent of mint filled the air. Almost in disbelief, Lena looked up and met Ethan's handsome, furious eyes. It really was him. He had come to find her. Chapter 11. Staring at the travel-worn man before her, Lena's mind struggled to catch up. It wasn't until the mugger on the ground let out a piercing shriek and tried to lunge at them again that she was jolted back to reality. Without hesitation, Ethan pulled Lena tighter, his arm like steel, as if trying to merge her into his very being. "Get lost," Ethan snarled in fluent French. "Don't touch my wife." Lena, who understood French, felt her heart skip a beat. Why was he here? And why was he still calling her his wife? Hadn't she left the divorce papers? Hadn't he proposed to Chloe? Wasn't their relationship completely over? Held securely in Ethan's arms, Lena's mind was a chaotic mess. Then his voice, a mixture of relief and anger, rumbled in her ear. "It's okay now." Lena froze. Before she could say anything, Ethan unleashed a torrent of words that left her speechless. "You think you're so clever, don't you? Running all the way out here. Why can't you take care of yourself? Do you have any idea what could have happened to you out here alone in the middle of the night?" He practically roared the last sentence. He couldn't articulate the sheer terror that had gripped him, especially when he saw her slender, fragile figure walking alone on the streets of a foreign country. When he saw that man lunge at her, he felt his heart stop. He was terrified that she would be hurt. But to Lena, all of this just sounded like impatience. It made sense. Back home, he had been completely indifferent to her. Why would he suddenly start caring about her safety just because she was abroad? It must just be his upbringing, a sense of polite duty. With that thought, the turmoil in Lena's heart settled. She pushed herself out of Ethan's embrace. Her expression was calm as she picked up her dropped handbag and offered him a sincere thank you. Thank you for saving me. I really appreciate it. Her tone was detached, as if Ethan were just a stranger who had helped her, as if there was nothing between them at all. Ethan felt as if a bucket of cold water had been dumped over his blazing anger, extinguishing it in an instant. Why did she seem so unaffected? Wasn't he her husband? She shouldn't be like this. A nameless fear began to creep into Ethan's heart, a feeling that the girl in front of him was about to slip through his fingers, and he wouldn't be able to catch her. Ethan took a few steps to block her path, but when he looked into her calm, questioning eyes, the 1,000 words he wanted to say got stuck in his throat. Finally, he managed to squeeze out one sentence. "Is that how you treat the person who just saved your life? With such coldness?" Lena frowned. "Then what do you want?" Ethan didn't really know what he wanted. Everything that night had happened too suddenly. Right now, there was only one thing he wanted to do. He didn't want to let her out of his sight, not even for a second, so he blurted out, "I want to stay with you." "It's late. You can't just leave your husband homeless, can you?" Lena's frown deepened. Husband? What was wrong with him today? He kept insisting on their marital status, but Lena didn't dwell on it. After the ordeal, she was tired, and she supposed she shouldn't be so heartless to someone who had just saved her. So she led him around the corner and checked him into a hotel. Ethan's face turned green. "Aren't you supposed to take me back to your place? We're married. We should be staying together." Lena looked at him and cut him off directly. Her voice was flat. "I'm grateful you saved me, but there's nothing between us anymore. You must have seen the divorce agreement. I hope you'll stop bringing up our marriage." "It's over," Lena said. Chapter 12. Before he found Lena, Ethan had imagined their reunion 1,000 times. Maybe he would force her to return with him, or maybe he would stubbornly follow her around. Or maybe Lena was just angry, and she would be overjoyed to see him like she used to be. He would just have to coax her a little, and she would come back with him. Out of all the possibilities, he had never imagined this. That Lena would be so calm and cold, leaving him utterly helpless. But he couldn't bear to watch her just walk away. Ethan frowned and resorted to a tactic he had always disdained. My arm really hurts. Are you just going to walk away and let your savior bleed to death?" At his words, Lena turned to look. Only then did she notice that the mugger had slashed Ethan's arm. The wound wasn't deep, but blood was slowly seeping out. Still, to say he would bleed to death was a bit. Lena was speechless. She didn't know when this stoic man had become so dramatic. But it was late, the clinics were closed, and European hotels didn't have staff on call all night. Left with no choice, she asked the front desk for a first aid kit. She would have to patch Ethan up herself. "Let's go to the room," Ethan pressed, pushing his luck. "It's drafty out here. I wouldn't want it to get infected." Lena nodded, conceding that he had a point. But before they went upstairs, as if remembering something, she gently shook the dozing receptionist. "Hello, could I get another room, please? Thank you." It was already very late, and going back home would be a hassle. Lena arranged everything with cold logic, treating the situation as if a casual acquaintance had saved her on the street. She would take care of him as required, but as for anything else, she wanted no part of it. "Aren't you two a couple?" The receptionist was getting impatient. From the way the man looked at the woman, with a love he couldn't hide, how could they not be a couple? But Lena shook her head and explained, "No, he's just an old friend of mine." "Another room, please." "Thank you." With that, she took out some cash and paid, her movements crisp and efficient as if Ethan wasn't even there. Standing beside her, Ethan was suddenly at a loss for words. Did he want to protest? Of course he did. He had the urge to march up there, snatch the key card from Lena's hand, and tell the receptionist, "I'm her husband. We'll be sharing a room." But then he looked at the young woman's resolute and tranquil expression, a side of Lena he had never seen before. It was as if, in the next second, she would turn and walk away without a shred of sentiment. Just the thought of it felt like a gaping hole had been punched through his heart, a pain unlike any other. It was better not to oppose her for now. Ethan remembered Lena's words, "We have no relationship anymore," and for the first time in his life, the man who was used to getting whatever he wanted swallowed his pride and stayed silent. He simply followed behind Lena as she led the way upstairs. He didn't dare say another word, terrified of losing her. Chapter 13. After tying the final knot on Ethan's bandage, Lena stood up and began to clean up the mess. Ethan, who had endured a full half hour of this, could no longer hold back. For 30 minutes, she hadn't looked at him or spoken to him. She had just kept her head down, tending to his wound with an air of intense focus, but seemingly without a trace of affection for him. Ethan couldn't stand it. Her silent, dismissive presence was more unsettling than any argument. So, the moment Lena prepared to leave, Ethan shot up and grabbed her by the wrist. The second their skin touched, Lena flinched back as if she had been electrocuted. The movement was so violent, as if he were some kind of monster. A heavy weight settled in Ethan's chest. His throat was dry as he asked in a hoarse voice, "Do you hate me that much?" Did she hate Ethan? Lena considered the question. In the beginning, when he started going to see Chloe, there might have been a flicker of hatred. He had made her so sad, so heartbroken. No matter how much she begged him, he remained unmoved. He didn't treat her like a wife, ignoring her feelings completely. Back then, she probably did hate him a little. But now, Lena gathered the various bottles and containers, turned and walked away, leaving only a single sentence behind. "I don't hate you." A spark of joy ignited in Ethan's heart. He quickly pressed on, So we're no different from strangers now," Lena said frankly. Hate, like resentment, was born from love. But she didn't love Ethan anymore, so how could she possibly hate him? Hearing this, Ethan sank back, as if he couldn't believe what he had just heard. "Not only do I not hate you, I'm actually very grateful to you. After all, you did save me. It's what I should do. I'm your husband." Ethan didn't dare finish the sentence, because Lena's brows were now knitted together in a look of pure disgust. It was true. Lena was disgusted by his constant reminders that he was her husband. She had come to a new city, a new country, to start a new life. The past was supposed to be left behind, but Ethan kept reminding her of that unhappy marriage, of a husband who didn't love her. She didn't hate Ethan, but she hated that part of her life. Lena's brow furrowed, and with a sharp clatter, she dropped everything onto the bed. Her voice was grave, a rare flash of anger directed at him. "I've told you so many times. You've proposed to another woman, and I've filed for divorce. Why do you keep clinging to this dead marriage? Are you doing it just to discuss me?" By the time she finished, Ethan was completely silent. Lena looked truly furious. Besides, he didn't know what to say. That he hadn't actually proposed to Chloe? That everything he did was just to make Lena angry? It all sounded too absurd. And Ethan was naturally proud. He couldn't bring himself to say those words, at least not right now. Lena, however, had run out of patience. She grabbed her bag and walked straight out the door, without a shred of hesitation. Her final words were, "I'll say it again, thank you for saving me tonight, but that's all it is. Thank you." "Nothing more," Lena said. Ethan watched her walk away and enter a room at the far end of the hall. He suddenly remembered when they first started dating. They had stayed in a hotel together, and Lena had insisted on sleeping in the same room. Her smile had been so sweet as she wrapped her arms around his, cooing, "I just want to be with you, forever." And now, just a few short years later, she was avoiding him like the plague. Could they still be together forever? Watching her retreating back, Ethan felt an unfamiliar sting in his eyes. He leaned against the hallway wall. He didn't sleep all night. Chapter 14. When Lena woke up in her hotel room the next day, it was already noon. Caleb had called her multiple times, his voice full of apology. "I'm so sorry, Yi. I shouldn't have let you go out on your own last night. You didn't run into any trouble, did you?" Lena thought about it. She had, but it's fine. "I ran into Ethan last night. He saved me." Lena was very open about it because in her heart, she truly saw Ethan as a stranger, or at most, a casual acquaintance. She didn't feel that being saved by a stranger was something she needed to hide from a good friend. But on the other end of the line, Caleb was deeply shaken. He knew all too well the role he had played in their relationship. He had thought that telling Ethan about the bet would create a crack in their marriage. He expected it to crumble naturally, giving him an opportunity. But he had never expected that Ethan would actually come here, all the way across the world to find Lena. Alarm bells went off in his head, but he knew better than to show his hand. Caleb forced his tone to be casual, feigning nonchalance. "Oh, that's good. Where are you? I'll come pick you up." Lena didn't think much of it. Brushing her teeth, she said, "I don't know if he's still here. I assume he's probably left. He must have come to France for something important. He wouldn't still be here by noon." Lena didn't believe for a second that Ethan had come specifically for her. Even his words from last night were probably just a sudden flare-up of his possessiveness. As for anything else, there was probably nothing. Caleb grunted in agreement. "All right, I'll pick you up and take you to the dance company. You have a performance this afternoon." Lena agreed and gave him her hotel's location. Just as she was about to head downstairs for something to eat, the doorbell rang. She opened the door and was stunned to see Ethan. "You're still here?" "You're here, so where else would I go?" Ethan thought, but he could never say that out loud. He just asked, "Would you like to get some lunch?" "Aye." Before she could finish, Caleb suddenly appeared, panting, clearly having run all the way there. "Mr. Blackwood, long time no see. Are you having lunch with ye?" Caleb asked, subtly positioning himself in front of Lena. His smile was faint but polite. "There's a French restaurant downstairs that Yi really likes. Shall we go together?" "Yi, she really likes." He spoke with an air of intimacy, as if they were the couple. A knot of anger tightened in Ethan's chest. He suddenly thought of the bed again. Looking at the two of them, he desperately wanted to know, did Lena have any feelings for him at all? Even just a little. He reached for Lena's hand, but she pulled away, sidestepping the two tense men. She walked out of the room. "I'm going to eat." Ethan instinctively started to follow her, but Caleb grabbed his arm. "Mr. Blackwood, I believe I made myself clear before." Ethan frowned. "Clear about what?" "Lena doesn't love you, not even a little bit." Chapter 15. The last time Caleb told him that Lena didn't love him, Ethan had been furious, immediately contacting the long unseen Chloe to start his campaign of spite. But now, with the same words uttered again, Ethan found himself surprisingly calm. Before, he had wanted Lena to care, to be angry with him. But now, he just wanted to be by her side. Ethan couldn't quite explain the shift in his thinking. He shook off Caleb's hand and said coolly, "What happens between my wife and me is none of your business. You two are divorced, and that still has nothing to do with you." With that parting shot, Ethan didn't bother arguing further with Caleb. He hurried after Lena, his steps urgent. Caleb watched him go, his fists clenching unconsciously. Ethan seemed to genuinely care about Lena, much more than he had imagined. This couldn't continue. Caleb thought for a moment, then took out his phone and made a call back home. "Chloe, it's me, Caleb." When Ethan reached the restaurant downstairs, Lena was studying the menu, the sunlight illuminating her rosy cheeks. Looking at her, Ethan felt a strange sense of peace. As long as she was in front of him, he felt calm. But as if fate was conspiring against him, his phone rang at the most inopportune moment. Ethan glanced at the screen. It was Chloe. He didn't want to answer. All his attention was on Lena. But then, Chloe sent him several photos. They showed a young girl's delicate handwriting. It looked strangely familiar. Just as he was about to ask what it was, another message from Chloe arrived. "These are from Lena's teenage diary. She wrote them for Caleb. She's been in love with him for a very long time." Ethan's breath caught in his throat. In disbelief, he opened the photos to look closer. Every word, every sentence, though not mentioning a boy's name, was clearly a young girl's confession of love. Ethan's phone clattered to the floor. He still couldn't process it. Was she really in love with someone else? All this time. Was their marriage truly devoid of any love from her side? These thoughts tormented Ethan, feeling like he was being slowly tortured to death, the pain in his chest so intense it was hard to breathe. But this time, he didn't run away. He didn't lash out in anger. Perhaps for the Ethan of this moment, Lena was the only thing that mattered. So he walked over and sat down in front of her, his heart pounding. He asked her, "Yi, I want to ask you, are you in love with Caleb?" The question had been bottled up inside him for so long that, when he finally said it, he felt a tangible sense of relief. It was immediately followed by overwhelming nervousness. His heart felt like it was about to burst out of his chest as he stared intently at her lips. What would she say? Yes or no? Finally, the moment came. Lena looked at him, confused, and said, "Of course not. He's my senior. What kind of nonsense are you thinking about?" Hearing her words, Ethan felt a profound sense of peace settle over him. He knew Lena had always been terrible at lying, whether it was about things she liked or people she loved. If she said she didn't love him, then she didn't love him. As he thought this, Ethan didn't even realize that he was beginning to trust Lena again, to believe everything she said instead of doubting her and hurting her. A small smile touched Ethan's lips. He was about to speak when he heard Lena say, "But Ethan, I don't love you either." Right now, I'm not in love with anyone. Chapter 16. Lena wasn't stupid. From the moment Ethan showed up asking her to breakfast, she could tell he had most likely come for her. Moreover, Ethan's assistant had made a special point of telling her, "Mrs. Blackwood, you have no idea how long he's been looking for you. He's terrified of losing you." Was he terrified of losing her, or was it just his possessiveness acting up? He didn't care when she cried, he didn't care when she was heartbroken, and he didn't care when she wanted to say goodbye. But now that another man was by her side, he suddenly seemed to care. Did he care about her, or about his own pride? Lena took a sip of her coffee, looking calmly at the sunshine outside the window. She said to Ethan, "Ethan, just let me go, okay? I admit, I truly did love you once, but that's in the past. The Lena who loved you is gone. The person I am now doesn't love you." Ethan was stunned. This was the first time she had ever spoken so bluntly about her feelings for him. She didn't love him anymore, not even a little bit. A sharp jolt went through Ethan. He opened his mouth to say something, but Lena's next words cut him off completely. "I know what you're going to ask. You think this has something to do with Caleb? You're overthinking it. Caleb and I are just like brother and sister. Nothing more. I don't love him now, and I won't in the future. What happened between us has nothing to do with anyone else. It's just that I don't love you anymore." Lena toyed with her coffee cup, her voice soft. "I don't know when it started. Maybe it was the first time you went to see Chloe, maybe it was how panicked you were for her, or maybe it was when you gave my solo dance to her. I honestly can't remember. The hurts you gave me were so numerous, so deep and heavy, that I truly don't know at which point it happened, but I just stopped loving you completely. Really, Ethan, stop pestering me. You don't love me anyway, right?" After saying her piece, Lena felt she had done all she could. She didn't touch the food she had ordered. She just picked up her bag, stood up, and left. "I hope you'll stop bothering me from now on." Ethan stared blankly at her retreating back, one phrase echoing in his mind over and over. You don't love me anyway, right? How could he not love her? She was his wife. They had shared a bed for years, traveled to countless countries together, and promised to grow old together. How could he possibly not love her? As he thought this, for the first time, the jumbled emotions he had carried since childhood found a clear outlet. Yes, he loved Lena Ainsworth. He loved his young wife, regardless of whether they were divorced or not. But Ethan's eyes stung. Lena's words echoed in his mind again. "I don't love you anymore, not even a little bit." She had said it with such finality. Was there any way back for him? Ethan stared blankly at the brilliant sunshine outside. The day was bright and clear, but it felt like it had nothing to do with him. The person who had brought brightness and joy into his life had left his world. Could he ever win her back? Or rather, should he even try? Remembering the faint look of disgust on Lena's face, Ethan, for the first time in his life, found himself trapped with no idea what to do, until his phone rang again. It was Chloe. "Ethan, Frederick and Alina are calling us back to get married." Chapter 17. Ethan's parents had also seen the news trending online. Only then did they learn that their son was divorced and about to marry another woman. They were shocked, but also indifferent. For years, Frederick and Alina Blackwood had been husband and wife in name only, each living their own separate lives, paying little attention to their son's affairs. But Ethan's actions were now affecting the stock price of the Blackwood Corporation. The public was eagerly anticipating the romantic union of the overbearing CEO and the talented dancer. His parents didn't care who their son loved, they cared about the stock price. So they immediately summoned Ethan back from abroad and ordered him to marry Chloe without delay. Chloe looked at the man beside her, her heart filled with an indescribable joy. After all these years of striving, the day had finally come. Collaborating with Caleb, intercepting Lena's secret love diaries, even pretending to be Ethan's white moonlight in their youth. She had done so much, and now she could finally marry him. Chloe gazed at him with adoration, only to be met with a cold and arrogant expression. He uttered just a few words, "I'm not marrying Chloe." His father, Frederick, was furious. "Why not?" Ethan frowned. "It was all a sham to begin with. I never intended to marry her." He had never intended to marry Chloe, nor had he ever intended to divorce Lena. In his heart, there had only ever been one wife, and that was Lena. No one else. But his parents weren't interested in their son's feelings. They didn't care who he loved. Frederick slammed his cane on the floor and issued a cold threat. If you don't obey, I'll remove you from your position at Blackwood Corporation." Ethan let out a cold laugh. They had been using that threat for years. It never got old. In the past, he had always reminded himself that they were his parents and would give in when he could. But now, this was about Lena. Ethan wouldn't yield an inch, not a single inch. He didn't want to spend the rest of his life with another woman. He didn't want to lose contact with Lena completely. So, he spoke with firm resolve, "Do whatever you want." With that, he left the room full of people, went straight upstairs, and shut himself in his bedroom. The room was neat and tidy, but something felt different. Ethan looked around and noticed that the pink towel and pink toothbrush were gone. Lena had brought them to the family home when they first got married. At the time, Ethan had been completely dismissive. "This isn't even our house. Why go to all this trouble?" Lena had wrapped her arms around his neck, her smile bright. "The place where you grew up is my home too. I want to leave a trace of myself in every part of your life." The memory of her promise was still vivid, but now everything she had brought was gone, as if it had never existed. Looking around, Ethan felt an uncontrollable sting in his nose. Would he really never see Lena again? Just like these traces of their life together, would they all be erased, one by one, until nothing remained? The mere thought was an unbearable pain. He didn't even notice Chloe standing in the doorway. Seeing the undisguised sorrow on Ethan's face, Chloe asked in a trembling voice, "Ethan, you've really fallen in love with Lena, haven't you?" In the past, Ethan couldn't answer that question, but now, hearing it again, it no longer seemed so difficult to answer. He was afraid of losing her, afraid of never seeing her again. If that wasn't love, then what was? Ethan sat up on the bed and nodded slowly. "Yes, I love her." Chapter 18. After saying those 3 words, Ethan felt as if a great weight had been lifted from him. For years, he hadn't understood love, emotions, or marriage. It was a flaw ingrained in him by his family environment, something he couldn't help. But regardless of his past ignorance, right now, his heart held only one simple, fervent desire: to be with Lena. To start over, to be together properly, just like before. Forever. If that wasn't love, then what was? Having made up his mind, Ethan's earlier despair and dejection vanished. He stood up, went into the bathroom, and splashed his face with water. When he came out, his usual calm composure had returned. He looked at Chloe, who was still standing motionless in the doorway, his expression cold and detached. "It seems your depression has improved considerably. Our little collaboration ends here. Don't bother me again." With that, Ethan made a gesture for her to leave, his demeanor arrogant and dismissive. A chill ran down Chloe's spine. Why? Why didn't Ethan love her? When they were young, he had looked at her with such tenderness. Even though she had taken Lena's place, intercepted her letters, Ethan had still adored her, seeing her as the perfect ideal, his white moonlight. Why, after just a few years away, had everything changed? Chloe couldn't accept it. She wouldn't accept it. So, after leaving the Blackwood villa, she paid off numerous media outlets, all of them silently pressuring the Blackwood family. In an instant, the entire internet was buzzing with one question for Ethan. When are you going to marry Chloe? Everyone expected Ethan to cave, but in his office, Ethan stared at the steadily declining stock prices on his screen and wearily rubbed his temples. He called his assistant in and gave an order. Have the company draft a statement. The assistant was confused. What kind of statement? A statement clarifying that I have no relationship with Chloe and confirming my marital status with my wife. The assistant was utterly shocked and stood there, speechless for a long moment. He knew his boss had always cared for his wife, but for the sake of Ethan's career, their marriage had been kept private. Why suddenly choose now to go public? With the recent news, going public now would mean the whole world would know that Ethan's proposal was an act of infidelity during his marriage. Wouldn't that damage the company's reputation even more? Had his boss gone mad? He looked at his boss in disbelief, but the only response he got was one of unwavering resolve. Do as I say, go public. After speaking, Ethan stood up and walked over to the large floor-to-ceiling window. He thought back to a time, right here in this office, when Lena had asked him, "When are you going to announce our marriage? I want the whole world to know we're meant for each other." Her eyes had been so full of anticipation, it seemed to spill over. But when he had refused, citing business concerns, she had swallowed her disappointment. She had forced a smile and said, "It's okay. I can wait for your company to be stable. I can wait. He had made her wait for so many years. Now, no matter the cost, Ethan looked down at the diamond ring glittering on his hand, a dull ache in his heart. No matter the cost, he had to give her that public acknowledgement, even if their relationship was already gone. Chapter 19. Lena had just finished her last dance of the day and was coming off stage when she got a call from her parents. "Yee, my girl, I saw the statement Ethan released. Why didn't you tell your mother and father you were getting divorced?" Her mother, Helen, sounded annoyed on the other end. She had never been keen on her daughter marrying that Ethan Blackwood. The boy was too cold, and her daughter was too passionate about him. She had been so afraid Lena would get hurt. The Ainsworth family was not short on money. There was no need for their daughter to be in a marriage of convenience. But back then, her daughter had been headstrong, so desperately in love with Ethan that they, having always spoiled her, let her have her way. But now, just a few years into the marriage, they were getting divorced. Her mother's voice was filled with anger. "I only found out from the news is he mixed up with that childhood sweetheart of his again. That bastard." As her mother continued to curse, Lena felt a sense of bewilderment. What news? The news about Ethan proposing to Chloe was old. Why was it trending again now, and how did it involve her? Lena was dazed, completely unaware of what had happened, until she opened her social media app and saw the top headline. Blackwood Corp CEO denies relationship with dancer, reveals he has a wife, and they are currently fighting. Lena stared for a moment, then clicked on the video. It was an exclusive interview with Ethan. In the video, he was unshaven and looked haggard. He frankly admitted the fact of their marriage, but when the reporter asked about their current relationship status, he paused. He looked straight into the camera and said slowly, "I did some terrible things recently and I lost her. But I'm going to try my best to win her back." As Lena watched, her mother's voice came through the phone. "He wants to win you back, that bastard. You can't be soft-hearted this time, my girl. You have to." "Mom, I know," Lena said, snapping out of her daze. She felt calmer than she would have expected, not a single ripple in her heart. "There's nothing left between Ethan and me." She didn't know what kind of stunt Ethan was pulling. After all, she had asked him time and time again to make their relationship public, and he had always refused. Now that she had completely given up, he suddenly decided to do it. It was strange. And pathetic. Lena thought this, her expression unmoved. But her mother, who knew how deep her daughter's feelings for Ethan ran, asked worriedly, "My girl, don't be soft. Don't go running back the second he coaxes you. That kind of man is cold and heartless. He doesn't know how to nurture a relationship. You won't find happiness with him." The nagging but deeply warm advice came through the receiver, silently warming Lena's heart in a foreign land. She smiled and said, "Don't worry, Mom. I stopped loving him a long time ago. No matter what he does, I won't forgive him and I won't go back. Some things, once done, cause damage that can't be undone. The heart can't go back." And for Lena, the heart that had loved Ethan was gone for good. It would never return. Her mother finally felt relieved. After a few more words of advice and sending Lena some money, she urged her to come visit them in the States for a while before hanging up. Lena's smile deepened, but it faded the moment she looked back at the man in the video. "I will definitely win her back." She thought for a moment, then posted a comment under the news article. "It wasn't a fight, it was a divorce. We have no relationship anymore." Chapter 20. Thousands of miles away, in the middle of a meeting, Ethan stared at the comment on his phone. The tablet in his hand suddenly felt unsteady. It crashed to the floor, shattering into pieces. Just like his heart, which was being torn apart, the pain so intense he could barely breathe. Finally, his assistant came in, temporarily paused the meeting, and helped Ethan to the break room. Seeing his boss looking so lost, the assistant knew that Ethan was missing Lena terribly. But the man was naturally reserved, and with the influence of his upbringing, he would rather suffer in silence than bravely pursue love. The assistant knew he was afraid of rejection, afraid of being pushed away by Lena. But the assistant thought long and hard and finally couldn't hold back. He began to earnestly advise his boss, "Mr. Blackwood, your wife has already left you. You either have to fight to win her back, or you have to accept her departure and live the rest of your life without her." Live the rest of your life without her. Just those few words made Ethan's expression darken even more. The pain in his heart intensified. He braced his hands on the table, almost unable to stand. In the silence, the assistant heard him whisper, "I don't want to lose her." The assistant sighed and pleaded with him, "Then you can't hesitate now, Mr. Blackwood. You have to go after her. Be persistent, shameless even. Do whatever it takes to make it up to her. Otherwise," the assistant said, looking into Ethan's deep eyes, "you really will never win her back." Those words struck Ethan like a bolt of lightning, jolting him out of his confusion. That was right. He loved her no matter what. Forget the bet, forget whether she truly hated him now, he didn't want to give up. Ethan clenched his fists, his mind suddenly clear. He grabbed his jacket from the back of the chair and practically ran out of the room. "Book me a flight," the assistant was taken aback. "To where?" "Paris, I want the next available flight." Yes, Ethan had been hesitating, wondering if he should continue to pursue Lena. Now he finally understood. He had to go. He had to get his wife back no matter how much it hurt his pride, no matter how much face he lost. For Ethan now, nothing was more important than Lena. The car sped towards the airport. Ethan's heart pounded with excitement. He looked at the ring on his hand and suddenly remembered something. Lena hadn't worn her ring since Chloe came back. Thinking about it now, she must have been heartbroken even back then. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling an overwhelming sense of guilt about to burst forth. He thought, when I see Lena again this time, I'll tell her that nothing happened between me and Chloe. I'll tell her that I've always loved her, and it was only because of jealousy and that stupid bet that I did those childish things to make her angry. All those immature and ignorant things he had done, things he had once found too hard to admit, he would tell Lena everything. He would tell her that he truly, deeply loved her. And then he would put the ring back on her finger. Just the thought of it made Ethan's heart race. He ordered the driver, "Turn around first, go home. I need to get my wife's ring." The car quickly arrived at the villa. Ethan ran inside and suddenly saw a figure in the house. Her back was to him, and she was on the phone. "Don't worry, I have all the diaries. I'll make sure Ethan never knows Lena wrote them for him. And you better hurry up and win Lena over. I still plan on marrying Ethan." Chapter 21. Ethan stood behind the woman, silently listening to the whole story unfold. His fists clenched tightly as everything suddenly clicked into place. So, Caleb had intentionally told him about the bet to drive a wedge between him and Lena. So, the love diaries Chloe had sent him weren't written by Lena for Caleb. They were written for him. So, she had been in love with him all along since they were young. The one who had written him letters, who had helped him through his dark teenage years, was her, and he, completely oblivious, had mistrusted her, retaliated against her without hearing her side of the story, and broke her heart. Ethan's fists clenched tighter, a burning hatred for himself rising in his chest. How could he have hurt her so badly? Hearing the creak of his tightening knuckles, Chloe spun around. She jumped in fright, and the stack of diaries she was holding tumbled to the floor. "Ethan, you?" Smack. Ethan slapped Chloe hard across the face. He lunged forward, his hands closing around her neck, squeezing as if he meant to kill her. "I never hit women, but you crossed a line. You dared to plot against Lena Ainsworth. You touched my last nerve," Chloe struggled, but Ethan's patience was gone. He threw her to the ground. He barked a cold order, "Blacklist her. And all that dirt she has from overseas, expose every last bit of it. She has depression, does she? Then send her to a mental hospital. Now immediately." Ethan's roar echoed through the room, his cold, ruthless expression silencing anyone who might have considered intervening. In the silent villa, the only sound was Chloe's wailing. She knew that with Ethan's influence in the arts world, a single word from him meant she would never set foot on a stage again. She begged him for mercy, but received no forgiveness. Only a cold, furious glare. Silence returned to the living room. Ethan stood there, slowly picking up the diaries from the floor. He read the neat handwriting, word by word, until he reached the signature at the end, the part Chloe had never shown him. Another day of Lena Ainsworth loving Ethan Blackwood. A new day, and I must continue to love him. Tears finally streamed down Ethan's face. So his girl had loved him for all those years too, day after day. He lost all of his lifelong composure, his noble detachment. He just clutched the diaries to his chest, holding them tightly as if they were a priceless treasure. "Go to the airport." Ethan walked out the door, giving the order. He was going to the airport, taking Lena's heart with him to win her back. No matter the cost. Chapter 22. Lena had recently noticed something strange about the dance company she was with. Besides her studies, she performed at this small, unknown company. After all, she was just a student with no reputation, so naturally, no famous company would hire her. But lately, this obscure company had suddenly become very wealthy. Famous dancers and choreographers were flocking to it, the studios had been completely renovated, and they were touring all over Europe. As one of the company's original members, Lena's fame grew rapidly. In just a few days, many prestigious performance venues had offered her opportunities. Not only that, the company had even prepared a solo dance specifically for her. In this foreign land, Lena stared in a daze at the English title of the dance. Jints, the dance that was etched deepest in her memory. The director told her with a kind smile, "Lena, thank you for everything you've done for the company recently. We wanted to help you fulfill a dream. I know your original solo was taken from you, so this performance is specially for you." Specially for her, Lena's mind couldn't process it. What good deed had she done to deserve the entire company backing her to fulfill her dream? Something felt wrong. Just as she was about to speak, her eyes caught a familiar figure. He was standing not far from her, signing some contract with the company's director. Lena ran over. She wasn't mistaken. It was Ethan. Having not seen her for over 10 days, the joy in Ethan's eyes instantly overflowed. The words "miss you" were forced back down his throat by Lena's cold glare. "Why are you here again? What is it this time?" Lena snatched the contract from his hand, an investment of 100 million euros. Was he insane? Lena looked at the man before her as if he were a fool. What on earth are you doing? Throwing money around for fun? First, that bizarre statement, and now investing in her dance company. What was this man trying to do? Lena couldn't figure it out, but this time, Ethan didn't leave her guessing. Without hesitation, he placed the signed contract in the director's hand. "It's signed. I will continue to invest in your company as long as you can make Lena Ainsworth famous," Ethan looked at Lena and said bluntly, "and make her happy." With that, Ethan pulled Lena aside. Lena couldn't hold it in any longer. Her patience had run out. Just as she was about to shout, she heard Ethan's low voice. "Lena Ainsworth, I love you. I was wrong. I want to make it up to you. I want to be with you again. Forever." The words came out in a rapid-fire succession, leaving Lena utterly stunned. Was this the Ethan she knew? The Ethan she knew had always been cold and detached. He never expressed love, never shared his inner thoughts. Even with Chloe, all Lena had seen was Ethan's actions. His true feelings were always hidden deep inside. He would never let anyone know. But now his cheeks were slightly flushed, his posture awkward, yet he spoke each word with firm conviction. "I like you. I love you, Lena Ainsworth. I have since a long, long time ago." As the confession hung in the air, Lena looked at Ethan's desperate expression and, strangely, felt a small urge to laugh. But her heart remained completely still. She had waited for those words for too long. So long that she no longer had any expectations. So Lena pulled her arm from Ethan's tight grasp, not even glancing at the thick stack of diaries he was holding out to her. She just pressed her lips together and said seriously, "But Ethan, I don't love you anymore. I've told you many times. I don't love you at all anymore." Chapter 23. After she rejected Ethan that day, he, contrary to his usual irritable nature, began to shamelessly stick by her side. He stopped going to work and started following her everywhere. Wherever she performed, he would be there. He even audaciously bought the apartment from her neighbor next door, insisting on being her neighbor. Lena was truly stunned and truly annoyed. One night, seeing the man who had been tailing her all day, Lena finally snapped. "What do you want? I told you I don't love you anymore, don't you understand?" If the old Lena had spoken to Ethan like that, he would have stormed off in a huff. But now he didn't care about his pride at all, letting her trample all over it. A faint smile played on his handsome face as he said, "I'm worried about your safety. I only feel at ease when I'm near you." He must have lost his mind. Lena couldn't get through to him, and she was done trying. She opened her door and slammed it shut in his face. A few moments later, the doorbell rang again. Lena was furious. "Ethan, will you ever quit? I told you I don't want to." Her words trailed off as she froze. The person at the door wasn't Ethan. It was Caleb, who had been on a business trip for half a month. Caleb's smile froze on his lips, his face turning ugly. "Ethan's here?" Why was this man so persistent? He had planned to confess to Lena as soon as he got back from his trip. He had waited until Lena's public statement, thinking she had finally moved on, thinking his chance had finally come. But now he had chased her all the way here. Caleb stood there, clutching a large bouquet of red roses, unsure whether to advance or retreat. Lena was stunned. "Caleb, what is this?" Caleb paused, then noticed the countless bouquets of roses already placed by Lena's door. He understood immediately. Ethan had already made his move. He couldn't just stand by, so he thrust the flowers towards Lena, his expression serious. "Yee, I've loved you for a long time. Will you be with me?" Lena was shocked. She and Caleb had been friends since childhood. He was like a brother to her, always respectful and keeping a proper distance. After she got married, to please Ethan, she had cut off contact with Caleb. And he had never said a word. She couldn't believe it. Her senior had been in love with her all this time. Lena stood there in a daze until Caleb gently prompted her. She snapped back to her senses. "I'm sorry, Caleb," Lena responded quickly, without hesitation. "I don't love you, I only see you as a brother. My feelings are purely platonic, nothing romantic." She pushed the roses away. "I can't be with you." Caleb watched her unwavering rejection, and a wave of disappointment mixed with uncontrollable anger washed over him. Why, he was the one who grew up with her. Why did she only have eyes for Ethan? From the very beginning. Caleb couldn't understand. Rage blinded him, and he lost control. He lunged towards Lena, trying to grab her by the neck. "You still love Ethan, don't you? His crazed attack terrified Lena. She was too stunned to dodge. Just as Caleb was about to force his way into her apartment, a pair of strong hands appeared, blocking his path. Caleb used all his strength, and Lena heard the distinct sound of bone cracking. Hiss! A low grunt of pain, and then Ethan was holding Lena protectively in his arms, roaring, "Get lost!" Chapter 24. After Caleb was dragged away by Ethan's security, Lena still couldn't recover from the shock. She had never expected her senior to be so obsessive, so volatile. And she had never expected Ethan to get hurt trying to save her. Without a moment's hesitation. At the hospital, after layers and layers of gauze were wrapped around his arm, Ethan's arm was put in a sling. He looked strangely comical. Lena couldn't help but smile. Ethan Blackwood, the ultimate pragmatist, had managed to get himself into such a sorry state. The way her eyes crinkled when she smiled was clearly mocking him, but Ethan wasn't angry. In fact, he felt a little happy. It had been so long since he had seen Lena truly happy. She was always guarded, annoyed, avoiding him. It had been so long since she had smiled at him. Seeing her smile now, Ethan couldn't help but smile back. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Lena suddenly snapped back to reality, her expression turning cold again. "Thank you for saving me." That's the second time. Lena felt a pang of guilt. She took out her wallet, pulled out a thick wad of cash, and placed it in front of him. "This is a small token of my appreciation. I know it's not much. I'll arrange for someone to take care of you, since it'll be hard for you to manage things like eating." She rattled off her plans methodically. Ethan's smile vanished completely. A vast sadness filled his eyes. He cut her off, his voice low. "You still haven't forgiven me, have you?" Lena was quiet for a moment, then said, "What's past is past." But there were misunderstandings between us. On the 15th day since he had come to France, Ethan repeated the same explanation he had given countless times. "Caleb and Chloe conspired to create misunderstandings between us. I didn't know the bet was something Caleb made up to provoke me, and I didn't know you were the one who comforted me when we were young, not Chloe. There were so many misunderstandings. Why can't we just start over?" By the end, Ethan was shouting. He couldn't understand it. He had done so much. Why wouldn't Lena forgive him? He looked at her, confused and angry, but was met with her placid gaze. Lena said trust. It was about trust. Ethan froze as Lena continued softly. "I loved you for many years, but you didn't believe it. You only believed the words of others. I wrote you so many letters, but you didn't believe they were from me. You'd rather believe they were from someone else. You never believed in my love for you. So now that I don't love you anymore, what right do you have to ask me to come back?" In the past few days, Lena had said a lot to Ethan, but only in this moment did he truly realize that he had been wrong from the very beginning. He had never chosen to trust this girl, to trust her love. He had just stubbornly and selfishly sought revenge, taking her love for granted, thinking she would never leave. Ethan was wrong, truly wrong. He had never cherished Lena, and now it was too late. All he could do was watch her walk further and further away, disappearing from his life, without a trace. Chapter 25. The day Ethan left Paris, he met with many people, secretly arranging everything for Lena's future. He deposited a large sum of money into her account and invested a huge amount into her dance company, telling them that as long as they nurtured Lena's career, the money would keep coming every year. An endless supply. He had planned out every possible safety net for her, and then he prepared to attend her first performance of the winter season. Winter had begun in Europe, but Ethan could no longer enter Lena's world. All that was left was to say goodbye, but fate had other plans. The day before the performance, Ethan noticed a suspicious figure backstage. "Who is that?" he asked his assistant. The assistant went to investigate and quickly returned. "It's Caleb Carter." Caleb, hadn't he been kicked out? What was he doing here again? Ethan watched Lena, who was engrossed in her rehearsal, and a sense of unease crept into his heart. He frowned and ordered his assistant, "Have someone bring Caleb to me." The assistant left but returned shortly after. "Mr. Carter is gone." Gone? He was just here lurking. Where could he have gone? Ever since his rejection, Caleb had become unhinged. There was no telling what he might do. Would he try to hurt Lena? The unease grew stronger. Ethan closely followed Lena as she packed up and left the theater. His heart was tense, his eyes fixed on Lena. He didn't even notice that he had forgotten to tell his assistant to follow them. Ethan didn't dare get too close, afraid of making Lena hate him even more. Just as they had walked a short distance, a dark figure suddenly stepped between them. It was Caleb. Sensing something was wrong, Ethan rushed forward to intercept Caleb, who was following Lena. Caleb turned, recognizing Ethan. The fury in his eyes intensified. Him again, it's always him. He was the one who stole his Yi. Caleb saw red. He pulled out a long knife and lunged at Ethan. Ethan dodged, but the knife still sank into his thigh. He couldn't help but cry out in pain. Ahead of them, Lena seemed to sense something and looked back, but saw nothing. Here, Ethan, enduring the intense pain, dragged Caleb into a nearby alley. He didn't want Lena to see such a bloody scene. Not at all. The girl he loved deserved to live in the sunlight, not be surrounded by pain and obsession. In the past, his misguided love had caused Lena so much sorrow. This time, it was his turn to protect her, just as she had secretly, silently comforted him in their childhood. Ethan clamped his hand over Caleb's mouth, using all his strength to restrain him, to stop him from running out and hurting Lena. Caleb roared, desperately stabbing at Ethan. Ethan did his best to avoid the blows, and they both fell to the ground. But with his injuries, he was at a disadvantage and ended up severely wounded. It wasn't until the sirens of the ambulance and police cars grew louder that Ethan finally released his grip on Caleb. A wave of excruciating pain washed over him. He closed his eyes and asked his last question before losing consciousness. "Is Yi home? Was she home safe?" The assistant quickly nodded. "Mrs. Blackwood is home safe." It turns out Caleb was planning to kidnap her today. Ethan managed a weak nod, his strength completely gone. Home is good. His wife, he called her that one last time, she was home. Safe, sound, healthy, and happy, that was all that mattered. The next day, the performance went on as scheduled. Lena danced gracefully on stage, her gauze skirt swirling, looking absolutely stunning. The applause was thunderous. People from all over the world, from all walks of life, clapped for this beautiful and talented dancer. Amidst the chorus of praise, Lena didn't notice a frail man in a wheelchair, far, far away. He only watched for a short while before the doctor insisted on wheeling him away. He was too weak. Although the stab wounds weren't deep, a nerve in his thigh had been severed. He would probably never be able to stand again. The assistant hesitated, then asked the man in the wheelchair, "Mr. Blackwood, would you like to go see Miss Ainsworth?" See her. There was no need. Ethan slowly shook his head, signaling that they could leave. He would never be able to stand again. A man like him was no longer worthy of the radiant, breathtakingly beautiful Lena. He didn't cherish her then, and he was unworthy of her now. A faint, bitter smile touched Ethan's lips. This must be karma, he thought. He had once carelessly hurt Lena, and now he had truly lost her forever. As the wheelchair was pushed away, Ethan took one last look at the girl sparkling on stage. She was smiling, her movements light and graceful as she took a bow, like a goddess descended to earth. Just like the day they first met, except they would never meet again. A tear fell from Ethan's eye as he made a silent wish in his heart. May she prosper and thrive. May her life be free of sorrow.